Hey everybody, welcome to the Ballet Rising videocast. Today we have with us a really good friend of mine from South Africa. He's the CEO of the South African International Ballet Competition and Mzansi Ballet. Welcome, Dirk Badenhorst. And here we are. Dirk, welcome to the videocast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about you, your company, your projects. Tell us a little bit, because there just seems to be a lot going on. You've got competitions, companies, teacher training programs. Tell us a little bit about all of that.
Yeah, so my umbrella business is really the South African International Ballet Competition, which I started in 2008. And we've had 6, and in July 2020, we're supposed to be doing the 7th one. Underneath the ballet competition, I have training teachers in the townships with the Ministry of Cuba, helping us in the process of bringing Cuban teachers to South Africa to train young, particularly Black South Africans, but all South Africans, to help us achieve greater transformation much quicker in South Africa. And then I run Mzansi Ballet, my own private company, which we started last year, and we've done a number of performances in and out of South Africa. And we were lucky to do some performances in January still, and we were supposed to do some performances this coming weekend, and sadly, that's the first impact of the coronavirus. So and then apart from that, I teach in a few schools around Johannesburg. And then I work with friends in Nigeria, where we are also starting to implement the Cuban ballet methodology under my program called Q-Dancer. And that really is the majority of the projects that I'm directly involved with.
Yeah, that's a lot. You're a busy guy.
Well, fortunately, I enjoy it, and as they say, if your passion is your work, you never work. So that really is how I feel it and how I feel about it, and so I'm very fortunate indeed. Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, we did. For those of us who follow, for those people who follow Ballet Rising, they'll recognize a lot of what you were just talking about. We've done a couple articles with you and also the Association of Ballet Teachers of Nigeria. So I'm hoping to get together and do one of these interviews with Esther, who's down in Lagos at some point soon. So yeah, that's a lot. That's pretty exciting. Yeah, you've also got the competition coming up here in, I think you said July, right?
That's correct, with the adjudicators coming from China, from Korea, from Holland, from Switzerland, from Cuba, from Portugal, from the Czech Republic, from Germany, from the US, and from another one from Switzerland. So it's a great combination, and so that's what makes it wonderful, but also at this moment could be part of the problem, in that it does bring together all of these international amazing people, but at a time where we are not 100% sure what the outcomes will be over the next 2 to 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Everybody's talking about the vaccines not being ready for at least 18 months, unless we use existing vaccines. So it's a bit scary, but it's scary for everybody. And I think this is what's so amazing, is that there are amazing initiatives. There's an email chain that was started by Mr. Ted Branson from Dutch National Ballet with all the directors of companies and schools and festivals, where we are very, very lucky to be able to share with one another our experiences in our respective countries, ask questions, because I think that's the big thing. Nobody knows anything definitively. And that makes it really, really hard. How do you keep, number one, yourself inspired and motivated, your dancers? How do you not lose your audiences? And then also the question around monetary, what's going to happen financially? Many companies, well, in South Africa, we get very little funding from our national government. in the United States is the same. So it's really, really scary to see the amounts of layoffs that are happening outside of the classical ballet world, but I'm sure that it will soon start having an impact in the classical world. And we have to start being very innovative in how we can look after our dancers, but also be realistic as to what can and what can't be done.
Yeah. I mean, typically ballet companies are a little bit more established. They're a little bit older than some of the other dance companies, but still it always affects all of us. And I mean, the dance community really is a community as a whole. And I feel like the ballet community is just as big of a part and very involved in the dance community as a whole. But yeah, the competition is fantastic. I mean, it's a well-recognized competition. You guys have produced a lot of really nice dancers that have come out of that competition and become known and recognized and gotten into big major companies. So, I mean, normally you think of these ballet competitions as being in someplace like Paris or Moscow or New York or something like that. But the competition that you have down in South Africa is quite impressive, and it would be a real shame for the arts community as a whole not to have it continue, especially given that it is something outside of the traditional areas of ballet, and just the amount of talent that comes.
So fortunately, we will wait until the end of May before we make a final decision. But also, if we have to, we would be able to postpone it. So that's also important. And the competition plays such an important role in showcasing South African dance talent to the world and bringing to South Africa wonderfully trained dancers and experience from adjudicators. And I think that's the value of the competition. It's not really about who comes first and third. It is, as you have said, one of the dancers at Dutch National Ballet was chosen at the competition in 2014 or 14, I believe. And dancers like Andile Ndlovu, Boyce Kobe became dancers in the United States because of the competition. And so it really has had a huge impact. And we've always been very thankful to the adjudicators that have come and offered their time to us in South Africa. And then Cape Town is such a wonderful place to host it. It's really, really a great space. It's a beautiful place. The people are lovely, and the South Africans, as much as the international community, love going to Cape Town for the competition. And the standard over the 6 previous competitions have just been really, really incredible. I've been lucky that I've been able to choose really great international dancers to take part, because that's always important. And then we've had a really, really great development of the training of young South African dancers because of the competition. So for that, I'm very thankful as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's interesting what you said a second ago about the communication that's been happening around the world as far as artistic directors are concerned, with sharing information and ideas and things like that. Because that's really kind of what I hope to achieve with this video cast, at least this what we're doing right now. I'm sort of shifting things out of the norm. We're normally trying to focus on areas outside of the traditional ballet-centric cities. And now I just really want to go everywhere and talk to everybody. So later today, I'll be talking to Christoph Pastor from Poland, and I've got a few people from the United States I've got scheduled to speak to as well. But before we get into that too much, what is the situation? What is ballet in Africa right now? Where are we at as far as like on the African continent? Where is ballet? How do people see ballet right now?
It's so amazing, because in South Africa we were having a very good standard, and then in the 2000 the theater closed down, and that had a huge impact in particularly the northern provinces of South Africa, but actually nationally. Both companies, because there's a big ballet company in Johannesburg and a big ballet company in Cape Town, and even though at the moment I'm not connected with either of them, we can see what's happening, but both of the companies are trying very hard to keep the standard up and work very, very hard. As an art form accessible to Black people in South Africa, it has really done a lot. Not enough, of course, never enough, but a lot of strides have been made. But it's still sadly not really easy to be a young Black South African dancer living in our rural areas, and even in the cities, but let's go out of the cities. It's really hard to get access to it. However, the interest in classical ballet in South Africa and then other South African countries have been incredible. Through the wonders of social media, I have been approached by dancers and teachers and interested parties in Uganda, in Benin, in Nigeria, in the Ivory Coast, in Namibia, in Botswana, in Zimbabwe, and then of course South Africa. So really, really the interest in, and it has to be classical ballet. They don't contact me to talk to me about contemporary dance or Afrofusion or Afro contemporary or anything like that. They are wanting pure classical ballet. And that for me is just so inspiring. And I keep on saying that the African continent is really, really ready for a huge ballet explosion. And that's really what I love about Ballet Rising, is the fact that it's starting to tell the stories of what's happening in the world of ballet. And you are indeed also talking Africa. You know, when I go to international ballet competitions, I always have the conversation around the issue that you cannot compare Africa to France or Russia, because they have had ballet traditions for so long, and the masses in Africa have not. In South Africa, we've had ballet for more than 100 years, but it was only accessible to a very, very small percentage of the country. And they have worked and developed along with many of the Eurocentric and European countries. The rest have not. And so we have to be very careful that we don't try and compare that to what was happening in the rest of the world. So we have to do what the Cubans have done and create ballet for Africa. Not bad ballet, not substandard ballet, but ballet that speaks to the African continent, as much as the Chinese have done the same. If we look at what's happening in China and the huge development and the amounts of money that the Chinese government is spending on classical ballet in China is immense. And we wish we could have a portion of that for ballet development in Africa. However, we don't, but there are so many interested teachers, parties that are really, really wanting to make it happen. And for that, we are so thankful. And therefore, we are very happy when we get support from, whether it's Cuba, we have had some support and offers from Russia, from the rest of Europe. You know, when my competition happened in 2016, Oliver Matz from the Zurich Academy said, well, we want to help Africa. We want to help the teachers in Africa. And, you know, this is what's so important. When we had our competition 2018, we had Christoph Bohm from the Berlin State Ballet School, as well as their director. And again, the offer has been just, call us, we will be there for you. So last year I brought Christoph Bohm from Berlin and Runchao Du from the Kirov School in Washington, Elsa Leimani from Latvia with the Vaganova system, Adiaires Almeida and Taras Dumitru to come and do workshops for us in South Africa and to help us become what we need to be to start entering the international world. However, it needs to be still South African ballet. It needs to be reflective of the demographics of South Africa. And I think therein lies the big challenge. And that's what makes Michaela de Prince and Misty Copeland and Brooklyn Mack and Andile Ndlovu such important role models in the world of ballet, particularly in Africa. And that's why it's so appreciated that they do the work that they do. We just need much, much more of it. We wish we could have more access to it. And then going back to the coronavirus, maybe this is where we can use the time that we have now to start saying, let's make more of the social media, these kind of formats that we are doing right now to reach more people. So many people, despite the poverty in Africa, still do have access to cell phones. In South Africa, they are doing a lot now to make data more affordable. In other African countries, it's already a lot more affordable. And I think this is how we can really make a difference right now. There are so many people that are offering classes, professionals, teachers for kids, and this is what we can make of this. We can start plugging into this immense social network that exists to reach people and places that in the past we couldn't. So I think this is what I find so amazing, and this is why an event such as this coronavirus, we need to look at the positive rather than the negative. And number one, we need to recharge. I think we all complain always that we are so busy, we are running around, we never have time to rest. Now we have enough time to rest, starting with stay healthy, stay safe, but let's also start creating this network that just, as I say, reach into places that's never been reached before.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's amazing. I think we can really look for the silver lining in all of this and look for ways that we can actually just, even if it's small ways that we can actually make the best of this situation. You know, this is all much better for the ballet world in general. I mean, I always try to imagine an entire world of talent, not just in the dancing realm, but the choreographic realm, the teachers, the directors. When you include everyone around the world, I mean, clearly people in Africa have a tremendous amount of love and passion for movement and dance. And there's clearly a big passion for classical ballet as well. And it doesn't have to be an African thing or a European thing or a white thing and a black thing or an Asian thing. It's everybody. It's human, you know? And I'm trying to imagine someday if we have like the Indian school of ballet, you know, just like we have Bournonville and Balanchine and Russian and French, you know, imagine one day we have the Cuban school, we have the Chinese are producing incredible dancers. Korea is really coming up. I mean, someday I can really see us having an Indian school of dance, an African school of dance, ballet. You know, it's just really going to spread around, and it's going to be so much better for everybody, just with the level of talent, the ideas that are going to come for productions and choreographies that can incorporate so many different styles of movement. And I think it's going to be an explosion of creativity and the abilities that these dancers are going to have. I mean, already from my generation to now, there's a massive leap forward in the technical abilities, but also the artistic abilities as well. And imagine in the future when we're just drawing on a global pool of talent and really coming together as a global community to speak about the importance of art and dance and creativity in society. So I think the future looks bright, but we're obviously hitting some potholes along the way, like coronavirus. So what is the situation as far as the country of South Africa right now and coronavirus? Are you guys on lockdown? How many cases are there?
Well, the very latest as of a few hours ago was that we had 202 infected people, and so far no deaths. The infections so far are all, or virtually all, from South Africans who had traveled out of South Africa and had come back with the virus. We haven't had, I think there's probably a very, very low number of infections that have happened in South Africa. So because it's still warm in South Africa, that's been very, very helpful. We had since Sunday been told the schools were closed, so the schools closed on Wednesday. No more gatherings of more than 100 people at a time. And then there were still a few people that thought, oh no, we can still do ballet classes. No, we could still do rehearsals. But no, the moment we took that decision, we have to look at what's been happening in Europe. We have to look at what's been happening in Italy, in Spain, and we cannot let our numbers get to what has happened in those countries. A lot of South Africans still are not following completely the strict rules. And as I said, because it's still warm in South Africa, but it's changing very rapidly. We have been very fortunate so far, but we are really expecting a huge spike in numbers in the next week or two, unless we can manage to not have the lockdown. We don't have a complete lockdown. People still go to work, but they go through all the measures of the sanitizers, the taking the temperature, those kind of things, where it's monitored well. But there are lots of people that are kind of treating it like a holiday, and this is where the challenge lies. From the dancers' perspectives, both of the companies have closed down and stopped. My own company, we stopped immediately. The moment the president made his speech last Sunday, we said that's it. My own teaching, that's it. The training teachers in the township, that's it. So we now, I believe, we just need to give it a week or two just to get a sense, because I don't think any of us are allowing ourselves time to truly process this, to understand what this is about. And so often that we experience a trauma, because it's a trauma. We have to worry about jobs, about creations, about the health of people. A lot of people have to think about their income. And all of that really is creating a huge amount of trauma. If we think of our young students who are very, very young, and they have no idea what this virus means. They just hear that people are dying. They just see that things are in lockup. They just suddenly can't visit their friends. And even that has a huge impact on how we experience this virus. Today on one of the radio stations, they spoke and they allowed kids to ask questions. Some of the kids just said, what has happened to my friends? How can I not go and see them? Are they okay? And this is what I'm talking about. I think we need to allow ourselves a bit of time to come to terms with it. A lot of people say, no, I want to do class. I want to create this. I want to do that. No, just take a breath. Seriously, just take a breath and look what's happening. Find out what's happening. Find out what is really the impact if you say, oh, I'm going to have a class with only 8 people in the class. No, you have to remember that each of those 8 people, if they stayed with you 24 hours a day, it would be fine. But each of those 8 people go away and they then interact with people that have met with 8 people, who've met with 8 people, who've met with 8 people. So tomorrow when those 8 people come back, they don't come back with 8 people. They come back with at least 64 other people, each of them. So it becomes a huge thing. Number 2, and this is also very important, is that we keep on saying that it doesn't have a huge impact on the youth, particularly very young kids, and then dancers who are happy and healthy and fit. But a lot of dancers go home to parents and grandparents who are not. And so this is where we need to be responsible. And again, I don't think a lot of thought has been given or have been given to what the collateral impact is of going out and doing class and trying things and creating. I just heard in the world of sport that in soccer and in rugby in Australia, they're going to continue behind closed doors with things. But hang on, those are 30 people that are having to have a lot of contact. They represent their own families. Are they in complete lockdown? Do they not see anybody else? And if they are, they will be the ones taking the virus even further. So that's why I think, again, what we are doing now, there's no way that I'm going to infect you not me. So this is why classes where somebody teaches using the internet, the Skype, whatever the format is, this is really what we are having to look at. So for instance, with my own school, I said I'm not doing anything until the 1st of April. So after April Fool's Day, we will start having classes for the kids on video or on Skype so that they can practice. But for me, a class needs to be interactive. So hopefully we'll be able to create these groups where the kids can be in home or at home, and we can give them still corrections and we can still work with them and make it specific. Yes, everybody would love to stay in shape. And so a lot of people are doing class in their homes. We in South Africa are still very fortunate that we have gardens, we have pools outside, some of us. So it helps. We're not getting the cabin fever that you would get if you sat in a 50 square meter apartment or smaller.
Amsterdam.
And so that's what we have to be realistic about. And then we need to start saying, what is it that we really need to achieve? So as I say, let's take a step back, let's reassess, and let's take it from there. And then let's see, what is it that we can create? What is it that we can make sensibly and productively and in a healthy way, while trying to keep the spread of the disease as low as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend about that because she's doing bar here in the living room twice a day, you know, really itching to keep in shape, but get back into shape. And I said, you know, you're going to have to pace yourself because this might take a little while. But I think one of the things that really concerns me, I mean, besides the fact that you could potentially be spreading it to older people that aren't in such great health. I've heard reports, and maybe this isn't true or not, but they've been studying some of the people in China who have recovered now, and they still haven't fully recovered 100% of their lung capacity. A lot of them are still missing about 20 to 30% of their lung capacity, and that might be permanent. And so if you're a ballet dancer or an athlete, I mean, that's tragic. Your career is, I mean, you can't do any of the hard ballets anymore if that's the case. So I think from that perspective as well, we have to be very careful in protecting our body and our health and stuff like that. But yeah, we're just so early in this right now. We still just don't know enough about it. So it is better that we take the time to do, as you said, to really understand it. But also, you know, we're creatives. We're creative people. That's what we do. We think outside the box. And so I think this is a great opportunity and a great exercise for us as artists to push the envelope of creativity and see what sort of innovative solutions we can come up with at a time like this. And it's going to serve us so much better when things do clear up and we and this virus is gone and we do start, you know, getting back into theaters and working again. So as far as like you are concerned and the companies are concerned, have you, there's obviously a lot of people not working right now, people aren't getting paid. You guys in South Africa, much like the United States, get very little money from the government anyway. What's the financial situation? What's just the situation? Has the government said anything to you guys about trying to stimulate the arts with financial packages? Have they, you know, what's the situation there?
As it is, the government gives, as you have mentioned, very little, if any. I don't think the national government in any way contributes to our two national companies. Both of the cities that they live in give them some funding. A lot of it is private funding. And we also know that with the markets declining, the concern is that the people with the money that contributes to it will have less money to contribute. So that's scary. In South Africa, they've just lowered our interest rate, which means the return on investment for so many people are getting less. So if there is a trust fund or an endowment fund, that is getting a smaller return. Wow. So really, it is really hard times ahead for the creatives. And it's not just the world of ballet, but in particular in the world of ballet, it's really not going to be easy. And so that's really scary for many people. And this is why I said we need to think of what is it that we can do? How can we do things that will earn people extra money? There are people saying, well, why don't some of these dancers do private lessons? Why don't they become au pairs? Because a lot of people are still going to need to homeschool their kids and things like that. We don't know really. As I said, there are too many unknowns, too many variables, and it's a health issue, and we don't want to risk those kind of things. So it's really a scary time ahead. Our government is only now starting to understand what they are having to do on a national level. Our National Department of Arts and Culture is really a disaster. So they were supposed to have announced funding for projects in October last year. Then it was supposed to be in January. Then it was supposed to be in February. We're now at the end of March, and nobody has heard a thing. And there's been some changes at the National Department of Arts and Culture. So there isn't really much hope that there will be funding from there. And there's not a proper database that they would be able to do such thing in any case. You know, the artists aren't registered anywhere. They don't belong to proper unions. It's so dysfunctional and fractured that it's going to be really hard over the next few months, year, to see what will happen. And so we will have to be very, very creative as to how we can take care of our artists.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can all, like I said, come up with some ideas, and hopefully somebody in some part of the world is going to see this and say, okay, I've got an idea. I'm just trying to pull as many heads together as I can through Ballet Rising and through doing these interviews to see who's got what ideas. I'm sure somebody can spark something, and if somebody has a little bit of resources, maybe we can shift it over here and maybe put these resources over there. I think as a global community, we're all going to have to really come together and think of some innovative solutions, not just for the Paris Opera and New York City Ballet, but for everyone. For it's just as important to all of us that we maintain ballet in every part of the world as we do in the traditional centers.
So there's a lot of people that are talking about doing live streamed performances, but it still means people having to come together and dancing together, which is problematic. I did see some choir somewhere. They came together. No, they didn't come together. They streamed from their different homes. They're singing together, which was interesting. For me, I think what we need to look at is to try and see if there isn't a way of going into for right now. As I said, we will have time to think into the future. But for right now, there exists a huge amount of wonderful works in archives. I think what we need to find is maybe ways of streaming those, and whether we charge or whether we ask people to donate or something, because people are bored. So they would love to have access to some of these incredible works. They are amazing pieces of archival material, of rehearsals taking place. So really, really, I think going back to those, also going back into some of the more historical things, seeing some of the greats being rehearsed, Margot Fontaine, Nureyev, Alicia Alonso, Maya Plisetskaya, those kind of really greats up to very, very recent. You know, then we can start looking at, there are some fun things that you could say, well, let's watch somebody doing a rehearsal in a studio on Skype and broadcasting that, so that there isn't interaction, but there's a solo being rehearsed. So there are lots of ways that I think into the future we can look into how can we actually use technology to do that. But right now, as I say, we sit on a fantastic treasure trove of beautiful choreographies, rehearsals that we need to make accessible to the world, and hopefully at a charge, so that the companies and the dancers therefore can earn an income. I think that's really, really important. If we could probably just start there and make a big fuss about it. And I think that radio and television and multimedia and social media can play a very, very big role in advertising these kind of things, so that also we don't simply ask the same people to fund everything and everybody, that we can reach into the pockets and minds of a much broader audience who typically would not have gone to the theater but is now stuck at home and they want to give their kids something to do. So I think that there's a big opportunity that we can explore.
Yeah, I think that's one of the silver linings behind all of this. I think because now I was shocked. I had been thinking this for a long time about how companies should be putting more material out on the web for people to consume and pay for. And almost immediately, companies started doing it as soon as they started closing. Opera companies, ballet companies, they started streaming stuff. Unfortunately, right now well, fortunately and unfortunately, they're doing it for free right now, which is great because you are giving so many more people around the world the opportunity to watch and learn about ballet and opera and things like that. So on that sense, it's great. But obviously, for right now, they're doing it for free, and I've been thinking for a long time that they should be able to monetize that. You know, like you said, they are sitting on massive treasure troves of content that they have, and they could be monetizing all of that. The question is just for me about technology. There are some technologies coming along that do allow companies and individuals to monetize that type of material, but it's very early on. There's something I've been looking into called the Interledger Protocol that allows consumers of web content to pay directly to the content producers, cutting out the middlemen, which allows the company and the producers to keep much more of the value rather than having all these middlemen continuing to cut off a little slice. But of course, that's going to be coming in the future. We'll have to really look into that. I've been trying to get into it as much as possible recently. This put a big fire behind me to get going. But for now, yeah, we'll just have to keep being creative and thinking of new ways and just keep sharing ideas and things. So, I guess just one last thought. Do you have anything to say, anything you'd like, any kind of statement you'd like the world to know about how you're feeling? What are you thinking? What can we all do to make it through this time together?
No, I just think the most important thing is to stay positive and to understand and respect the fear that some people have, and to try and work with that, and to be respectful of it, but to also help people overcome it. And I think that we need to look at the positives and to try and find ways of moving forward through this. And hopefully, I feel like we're kind of sitting back waiting for the medical profession and the scientists to come up with the solutions, and I kind of wish we could just send positivity to them, to know that we are all relying on them and thanking them for the work that all the healthcare staff of all of these places, they are doing an amazing job, but let's send them positivity to come up with solutions much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like all these round of applauses that we're doing here in Europe. I think at 8 p.m. every night we're hanging out the windows and giving a big applause to all the people working in the stores and all the healthcare workers and everybody, especially in countries that are getting hit hard right now, like Spain and Italy, or just, Italy's just getting slammed. So, well, great. Thank you so much for joining us, and good health, good luck, and let's keep in touch.
The same to you. Take care of yourself.
All right. Take care, man.
Ciao.